Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Fabs here, and what a crazy week 6 we just went through. It was like a bizarro fantasy football world that there are a lot of good players to pick up off the waiver wire heading into week 7. And for help with those players, let's bring in the princess of props, our very own Jen Piacenti from Sports Illustrated. Jen, let's start off with the quarterback position where Sam Howell's been pretty good lately.
He has been pretty good. He's actually finished as a top 14 quarterback in 5 of 6 fantasy football weeks this season. He's also thrown for 5 touchdown passes across the past 2 games. Listen, Sam Howell actually leads the league in dropbacks. He has plenty of able weapons. And if you're looking for someone who could probably only get better, plus has rushing upside, look no further than Sam Howell for the Washington Commanders. It is thin out there, guys. You may need to find a replacement for Justin Fields. 6 teams on bye. Sam Howell's my top priority. Pick up at the position. Though, it's getting pretty ugly. You may also have to consider Desmond Ridder, Josh Dobbs, Gardner Minshew even.
It's rough. It's rough sledding out there. Baker Mayfield as well, even though he's coming off a bad game.
Yep.
But you mentioned it. We are on the cusp of bye-mageddon. Let's move on to the running backs, where there's actually a pretty good number of options. I just don't know if those options are pretty good or not.
Well, what we do know is that Donta Foreman wasn't very good last Sunday, but he was pretty much our only option because Khalil Herbert has been, moved to the IR for a while, and Rashawn Johnson was still inactive with a concussion. But Rashawn Johnson should be back this Sunday, and that's why I'm going to mention him today in this video because he, I believe, has the most talent and the most upside of the available running backs this weekend, mostly because of his matchup versus the Las Vegas Raiders, which is very favorable. Now, Rashawn Johnson was somebody you may have heard more about if you weren't stuck behind Bijan Robinson at UT. He's a very talented player, averaging 4.9 yards per attempt this year, and he's caught 11 of his 12 targets as well. Of course, there's some concern about Christian McCaffrey, and so you could also pivot to do something like picking up Eli Mitchell or Jordan Mason, but we kind of got lulled into this false sense of security because Christian McCaffrey really did handle the bulk of the duties there, and it made us feel like you could count on a 49ers running back. But guys, unless you're new to fantasy football, you should remember Shanahanigans. That's probably what we're going to get this week. So good luck picking which one. I probably prefer Mason, but of course, Craig Reynolds, even Kyron Williams was seen in a boot. Zach Evans, go read the article. There's a lot of options out there.
Yeah, make sure you check out Jen's article. Kareem Hunt could be floating around out there. Yep. Keontae Ingram could be out there. Not saying these are all great options, but they're warm bodies who could get some volume. And with 6 teams off, we're going to need that. Moving on to the wide receivers, and a player that we have both had in our columns for the last couple of weeks, but Rashee Rice is still floating around out there for some reason.
Yeah, he's still only about 30% rostered, which is very interesting. He had a good showing again on Thursday night, caught 4 of his 4 targets for 72 yards. Listen, he actually leads the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver room with the most targets, the most catches, the most yards. I know he's still only playing 50% of the snaps, but this week they're facing the Los Angeles Chargers. So if there's ever a week to bet on a Chiefs wide receiver, it's this weekend. So Rashee Rice is my number 1 claim at the position for the immediate future, at least, and he could pay off down the stretch as well. Also really like Josh Downs and Michael Wilson, and there's a few other deeper league ads as well in the article.
Curtis Samuel's also still out there in a lot of leagues. He's been very good 3 straight weeks. And if the Broncos ultimately trade Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy, you may want to grab Marvin Mims now while he's still on the wire. Finally, at the tight end position. Now, last week, our best ad was Logan Thomas, and I even thought he was a good start. He did not perform for us. I think I may rage drop Logan Thomas in my leagues this week. But who is the tight end that fantasy managers should pick up this week?
So the tight end we're targeting this weekend is Michael Mayer, who has seen 9 targets across the past 2 games, and he led the Raiders in receiving yards on Sunday. Mostly it's about the matchup, though. It's Chicago. They've allowed an 83.3 catch rate to opposing tight ends, and they've allowed the 7th most receiving yards. So if Mayer is kind of taking over this position, if people are figuring out how to shut down Devontae Adams and he's leaping over Austin Hooper, then Michael Mayer is worth an ad. And he's just widely available. But do check your waiver wires because, a lot of people dropped Dalton Kincaid. There are people out there. People maybe even dropped Dalton Schultz. There are people out there that you may be able to grab. So do remember, in these bye-mageddon weeks, it can be your opportunity to be the vulture. Be sure you check out who everyone drops. Even if you don't need a warm body, maybe just grab one.
Another good tight end, Luke Musgrave, coming off a bye, and he's got Denver this week, so that's another good add. And hey, we talked about Jonnu Smith. I mean, he's had 3 or 4 good games in a row, and both he and Kyle Pitts are playing a lot in 12 personnel for the Atlanta Falcons. Jen, you are the best. Great stuff as always. Make sure you check out Jen's waiver wire column, her DFS column, her player props column. She's the best in the business. And while you're over at Sports Illustrated, check out my stardom and situm and player rankings every single week. We are here to help you win a fantasy championship. Make sure you check out si.com/fantasy.